Welcome. My name is Mitch Guthrie, and this is The Long Letter. And my guest today is Steve Brown. Steve is a writer and a musician, an elder at Gather Church, and he's really old.
And I told you could do old jokes, but I've got some retorts ready for you.
I'm completely fine with that. Steve, thank you for being here today. I'm really excited to get into your story and learn more about you. Why don't you just use your own words to introduce yourself?
I'm a preacher's kid. And so my prayers go out to all preacher's kids that I ever meet. It's a blessing and a challenge to live up to what people see, but be able to live your own life. And my parents gave me the opportunity, the freedom to do all kinds of things. And with that freedom, I made some bad choices and some good choices. And here I am now. And Mitch mentioned that I'm an elder of this church.
In more ways than one. You're really old.
I'm among the top 5%.
Yeah, you're our elder statesman of the elder board.
That's it. I'm the elderest. Where was I? I'm easily distracted.
That's my fault. You were saying that I mentioned that you're the elder. You're an elder.
Oh, I have been asked before in churches I was at to be an elder. But this is the first time I've accepted because there's always been something missing. And I imagine I'll get to this eventually. The kind of church that I found myself in, the church has in my history, I've been a dozen or more. This is the first one that actually works outside the doors. I did a benefit concert one time, singing my original songs for about an hour as a fundraiser. And I found out later that it was a fundraiser for a support for people who are in that body of believers, in that community. And I thought, that's too small a community. If you're only giving generously to people who can return, that's not the kind of giving I like. My parents, go back home all right.
Well, let's go. You talk about being a PK, pastor's kid. Mm-hmm. And now today you're an elder on a board, and there's a whole lot of that happens in between there. But I like to kind of go back with everybody and just kind of walk through quickly your home life, your family life. What was your upbringing like?
I was the middle child of 5, and I've heard many theories about being a middle child, and I thought some of them are right, some of them are wrong. But we had a lot of love in our family. We would sit at the table, round table, nearly always had round table for the 7 of us, and there was lots of laughter. There was singing. We'd sing our prayers oftentimes. Dad was a preacher in a denomination which is, I guess, mainstream at that time, but now it's like they're not kooky or anything. But they were raised up with traditions of, we'll sing these songs, we'll stand up for these songs, we'll listen real quietly, we don't get up and raise our hands.
The frozen chosen.
Yeah, almost that. Except these were warm people.
Yeah.
And Dad was, besides being a preacher, he was also a teacher. He taught Spanish and English high school level, and later at community college level. Mom was a teacher. She loved teaching kids, first grade, second grade, and she was a wonderful woman. So being with these word people, all of us 5 kids ended up with word professions. Excuse me. Older brother is a historian and history teacher, wrote a book about some of my grandparents' adventures back in China as missionaries. My mom was born in China. It always blew my mind that I could tell my friends, my mom was born in China, but she didn't have a drop of Chinese blood in her. They thought that was amusing. They thought, hell well. And so my sister she excelled in stenography, so she was an executive secretary. I became eventually a newspaper reporter, copy editor. My younger brother next to me was in radio and TV. He had a great speaking voice. It should be him here, not me. I've got all this hoarseness going on. He had majestic volume with him. He's gone home now. And my youngest brother is, doing it again.
Yeah.
My youngest brother works at a Christian news organization in the South. And so he's doing writing and editing and directing. So all of us became word people. Put a book in front of us and we're gone, right? Get lost in that.
So it's a family thing. It's because I've read some of what you've written. We talked about writing and different stuff. And I didn't know if that was just your own sort of craft you had, but it sounds like it kind of comes from a family line of creatives.
Mm-hmm. And also music. Both my parents were, Dad was, of course, lead singing as the pastor. My mom would be usually directing the church choir. And so as I grew up, to keep an eye on me Thursday nights during choir practice, I would join with the grown-ups and sing with them. So I started out singing soprano, this tall. As I grew up, my voice got deeper, so I learned all 4 parts to many of the old hymns. And that makes it easy for me to find harmony when I'm singing. I love singing. I love making music with friends.
Yeah, it's always it's fun to sit next to you in church if I'm sitting in front of you, because you're never just rolling with the melody. I can always hear some sort of harmony, from your area, and you got a very soft, gentle voice, and it's great. I love seeing you exercise the musical part of you. And you recently had your brother up.
Yeah.
And we were out, I can't remember, and I think we were sick or something that week, so we didn't get to meet him. But I guess the word was people sitting in front of you could hear you two start pairing off in harmonies. And it was just life-giving, a very great experience for the people that were sitting in front of you.
Music is such a gift to all of us, and I'm glad I get to be in the middle of it every chance I get.
Yeah.
I sing with a trio, Dan on harmonica, Charles on guitar, me on guitar singing. I love doing that, but I wish there was somebody else singing so I could do harmonies. That's my joy.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So you've got this family background, warm household, sounds like a lot of care, pastor's kid, all the stuff that comes with that, pro and con.
Yeah.
That can be a struggle. So what's your relationship with your family now? Would you say however many are still there, and you've shared some of that history with me before, but like family wise, where are you at?
Mom and Dad have gone on home. My younger brother, Dave, he passed away, it's been a little over a year ago now. And I got to be with him a few weeks before he died. And he was physically just in a lot of pain, going through dialysis. But we got to talk a lot about memories and things. He's ready to go home. And so I have no doubt that he's out of pain now, and he's with joy, surrounded by joy. So my older brother and sister, little brother, they're all over in the central time zone. So I have nobody out here on the West Coast that's my family. Whenever we talk on the phone, the warmth is there. Mm-hmm. There's none of the things to reconnect or except to get caught up. How's the wife? How's the kids? And we click and slide in automatically to being warm again. Even though there's distance and there's time, I've got more closeness with them, and that whenever we get together, it's a reunion. I have 3 kids. 2 of them are in the mountain zone, 1 in the eastern zone, so I don't get to see them very often. And I miss that. There's not the closeness with my kids that I have with my brothers and sister. And I I regret that. I miss that a lot. But the family is, I've got dozens of cousins. They're all in Texas and Oklahoma, where I first grew up. Mm-hmm. But that's not home.
Yeah. And you spent a lot of time in New Mexico?
Yeah, we moved to New Mexico, to Alamogordo. That's where my dreams, whenever I'm dreaming and I'm home, that's where I've got those mountains off to the east of the town. It's a beautiful place. I'm walking the desert, enjoying all the different shades of brown. When we moved there from Oklahoma, I thought, where have they brought us? It's a beautiful place.
So my grandparents used to take me on trips across the country with them. And in one trip, we drove from Washington through Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, down into Colorado. And then I got picked up by an uncle, and he drove me down through New Mexico, Arizona, into California. And, as a kid, I was probably middle school. I just remember New Mexico being just beautiful. I mean, it's a desert, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a beautiful desert. I loved it. We ended up going through Albuquerque and, seeing the ruins of the Pecos Indian tribe and stuff like that. And it was just like, I just remember thinking, this is really nice. Even though I'm a Pacific Northwest kid myself. There's a lot of beauty there. You can say all the shades of, you can have any color you want as long as it's a shade of brown.
That's right. And you can see for 50, 60 miles out there to the next range. And that's where my heart is. We moved out here, Marcia and I, my wife, because we lived in Albuquerque. About a mile high, the elevation and the heat were getting to her. So we looked for lower and cooler, and we found the Pacific Northwest, went to Salem. And now she's able to breathe, able to live, which is important, and we love that. Mm-hmm. I'm having to get used to all these shades of green. It's kind of nice. Beautiful place.
Yeah, the green sticks around throughout the year too, which is always, I like personally. So going back, you eventually find yourself in the military.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I graduated high school, and the family tradition is you go to college. So I went to college, and for 3 semesters, I did okay. But I had no clue what I was going to be doing. And I thought, if I drop out, the Army's going to get me, because this was during the draft, during the Vietnam War. And I had my student exemption. I could stay in school all the rest of the time throughout the rest of the war if I wanted to. But that was a waste of time for me. And I felt a waste of my parents' money. So a friend and I decided it's time to make a choice of what we're going to do. So we both agreed, let's drop out of school, tell the selective service system where we'll be, when to come get us. and so I got that famous letter, greetings.
You've been selected.
Your friends and neighbors have decided to send you off to war.
When you made this choice, and I'm trying to piece together, so years ago you shared your story at church one night, and I remember you talking about your time in the military. Was this around the same time as you started to quote unquote wander from kind of what your upbringing, your parent, kind of how your parents raised you?
Oh, that started back in 7th grade, man. When a friend of mine stole his pack of his mom's cigarettes, and we went out in the desert, found an arroyo. It's a geographical thing where water flows when there's water. Get down in there and you're invisible. We'd go out there and smoke her cigarettes. That's also when a friend of mine brought a page from his dad's Playboy to band. And so after band practice, I got my first taste of pornography. And so those 2 things grabbed me early on, and they were an addiction for a while. But it's when in the Army, when I had the freedom, that's when I could do whatever I want to, as long as I don't get caught.
You don't have to hide out in a arroyo.
Right.
You're an adult now, sort of.
Mm-hmm. And so I had done some drinking beer before that. When you get to Germany, you get to drink German beer, which is totally different.
And culturally, it's different too.
Yeah, it is.
It's not uncommon. I mean, European standards of drinking versus U.S. standards. There's more of a background cultural thing there,
Right.
Necessarily than here in the U.S. So you're in the military. You got a little bit more freedom.
So got over to Germany. My commitment was for 3 years. Don't do that. No noise.
You're all right.
My commitment was for 3 years. And this was during Vietnam, so I thought that's where I'm going to end up. However, the folks the class that I graduated with out of AIT, Advanced Individual Training, the class before us, 1 week before, almost all of them went to Vietnam. I thought, there we go. When my class graduated the next week, nearly all of us went to Germany, West Germany. I think one guy stayed in the U.S., some went to Korea, one guy went to Vietnam. So off to Germany I went. This was going to the same part of the world where my dad had been at war. And I didn't find out until later that the town I was stationed in, Aschaffenburg, had been just devastated. I saw some pictures of all these buildings being crunched. Remember seeing the pictures of war going up on a street-to-street fighting kind of thing going on?
Right.
That's what was going on there. When I got there, which was about 25 years later, it was totally rebuilt, clean, beautiful place. And I fell in love with West Germany. My dad had to fight there. Well, he was not a fighter. He commanded a truck company. So he got to see a lot of the after action. His job was to try to keep up with George Patton, General Patton, to keep him supplied. Got over there, and I always thought that marijuana was something only out in California. The hippies are smoking marijuana. Then there's a fellow, I managed to meet some guys who were smoking up, and they said, "You want to try it?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" Why? I've asked myself that many times. Why did I get into that? And it's curiosity, youthful rebellion. I was always shy. First time I got high, I couldn't stop talking. Sitting with some guys in a Volkswagen, with 4 or 5 guys in a Volkswagen smoking up some hashish. We didn't have the leaf marijuana over there. This little car filled up with smoke, and we just all got blasted. And I kind of held forth with all the different things I was thinking and seeing all this stuff going on in my brain, and I was like, I'm part of these guys. That was my illusion. And I think that's what all those psychedelics do. They give you an illusion of things that aren't there. My wisdom, I would write things down, write about poetry when I was high, come back and read it, and I think, that? And I look at, I've kept some of that stuff now to remind myself how wise I thought I was.
Right. It leads you to think that you're having some huge epiphany or something that in that state of euphoria or whatever, and
exactly.
And then it turns out you're just normal slob that you
just distorted.
And did it stay in kind of just smoking marijuana lane? Was there other things involved later on? Did it get more serious?
Yeah. About halfway through my time in Germany, some friends said, "Wow, we're enjoying smoking pot. Have you ever tried acid, LSD?" I thought,
which is quite the jump, by the way. Those are some friends you got there.
You get a mix of people in the Army. People from different cultures, races, backgrounds, accents, tastes. It didn't seem like a big jump then, because hashish is already strong enough to give you a lot of distortion anyway. It doesn't make you see things that aren't there, really. It just makes you see them more deeply and more profoundly.
So you have friends that introduce you to acid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've got better friends now, Mitch.
it just sounds so wild to say. I want to recap, but at the same time, I'm like, this sounds like just insanity. So what was your experience with that?
It gave me a greater sense of wisdom and distortion. I didn't see things that weren't there, except sometimes the walls would kind of change colors a little bit, shimmer and melt a little bit, but it wasn't frightening. Until one night, I had one bad experience. This was December 1970. All this time, I had figured I'm a Christian, I'm covered. Because of my dog tags, it said Christian right there. And if God can read that, he knows that I'm a good guy. But I had no relationship with God. I didn't go to chapel on Sundays or anything. So that night, my longtime roommate got discharged, and he got to go back home. He lived in upstate New York. And so I was sitting with some guys, friends, who we were playing spades, playing cards. And I kind of sat out for a while and just watched them. And I started getting into this self-examination, which is a dangerous thing to do when you don't have your feet on the ground, or however you want to say that. I was thinking, I don't know these guys. I know their names. I know where most of them are from. I know what duties they've got in my unit. And I know we have a lot of laughs together. But I thinking, I need to take a walk and clear my head. Because I started feeling so alone and not able to get out of some spiral I found myself in. And my brain was going, felt like it was going down a drain. So I put on a nice warm coat, December in Germany, and took a walk, headed out to my favorite hill outside of Aschaffenburg, about a mile away. And I thought, I'll just go out there and keep breathing good air, is my thought. On the way there, it kept getting more and more frightening. It was like a nightmare that I thought, all I could do is keep moving my feet. I know I got this goal to climb up this hill, and there's a bench up there, and I can sit down on. I got to the bottom of the hill and started up, and I was thinking, I'm dying. My brain is stopping. I thought, Mom and Dad are going to be really disappointed when they get the report that I've died. Because my thought is, my brain's going to stop. I'm going to go up on this bench, lie down, and freeze to death. Or if I survive, there won't be any brain left. I feel like there's nothing else I can do. And I had the weirdest experience. I heard children singing, Jesus Loves Me. I thought, that was weird, but it's something outside myself. And it sounds kooky to say it, but that was what I heard, Jesus loves me. And I thought, that put my mind on, God, I'm sorry. I've blown it. There's nothing here of me that's of any worth. So I go up there and die. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And so that was my state of mind when I got up there and stretched out on the bench, closed my eyes, and I don't know if I was asleep for 5 minutes or 2 hours. When I woke up, my head was clear. There was no more spinning or distortion. I stood up and I could see the town lights of Aschaffenburg down below me, and I thought, they're not sparkling, they're not going crazy. I thought, did you heal me, God? I didn't know he was still in that business. I thought he just set things in creation and stood back. But I felt inside me that he had healed me. My mind was like a watermelon that I'd scraped out from the inside and there was nothing there. God put me back together. And I had sanity. And I promised him, I'll never use acid again. And I didn't. I never went back to that. I kept smoking for a long time, but I felt like God touched me. I don't know why. There's nothing I could ever do for him. Be a better guy, whatever that involves. Go to church, I can do that, I guess, if I have to. But that was the night, that my life went from this direction to that direction.
This is the start of it.
Yeah, that's where it started.
And like you're saying, it's not like everything just all of a sudden came, fell together perfectly. But
No.
It was the sort of change in trajectory for you.
It's like taking a bath after being in the mud for a long time. You can still get dirty, but it's like a very welcome change of direction. Yeah.
So, when you think back to your time in the military and including this time of drug use, is it primarily a bad memory? Is it a good memory? Is it a mix? Is it things was your experience? What'd you take out of that? What do you carry with you today about that?
I still walk at attention when my body lets me. I've had some back problems that I was kipping around on a cane for a long time. But I've always walked at attention. I find myself when I step off the curb to go across the street, I step left foot first. I address people as sir and ma'am or miss. Now that I'm old, I can call them, thank you, dear. I can get away with that. I learned a lot of good stuff in the military. Taught me how to be responsible. I was a supply sergeant for my company. I'd drive a big truck around the roads of Germany and had a lot better body than for hoisting things in and out of the truck. So responsibility. I grew up a lot. Something I still do that is probably from that time is I pick up trash. When you're a private, you said, go out and police up this area. Police means to clean it up, pick up trash, cigarette butts, and anything. I'm still on police call. I still pick up trash.
For life.
Yeah, it's my lifetime job. Also, I'm on guard duty. I watch out for people. When there are people walking or around me, I watch out for them. If there's anybody watching them with looks kind of suspicious, I'll hang around and let that person know I'm here. Let the person who's watching. The other day, over in Walmart, product placement, sorry. I was in Walmart and a lady had left her cart here. She was over here looking through some produce and her purse was there. And I said, excuse me, I'm a veteran. I'm still on guard duty. You might want to put your purse somewhere more secure or stay closer to it. And she said, thank you. Let's put it around my neck. And I thought, that's a small thing, but it's something that I've been doing since 1968 on guard duty.
The situational awareness kind of sticks with you.
Yeah. I can't do much more. I've lost the physical skills to be able to take out a bad guy. But I would try, I think, if I had to.
You could be real annoying about it, though.
I could.
Well, let's shift and talk a little bit here on, you had talked about needing a cane recently. And I know for the past year or so specifically, you've really been dealing with chronic pain, pretty severe chronic pain.
Yeah.
We'd talk over the year. Some days it was obvious you could barely move, and other days, you were having a better day at that time. one thing that I've always appreciated, or that I've just been in awe of you about, was knowing that you're going through this intense pain. I'm a big baby. When I'm hurting, I'm miserable, and I want to make everybody else near me miserable because I
can picture that.
I saw you going through this, and you're always so gentle. You're always so kind, and I'm sure you weren't like that round the clock, but the way you carried yourself despite having this extreme pain, what's been your experience with that? Like your mindset, or even just, this is going to sound terrible, but like, was there a lesson you learned about yourself as you've been dealing with this pain for the last year or so?
A lot of it has been knowing I'm getting good care from my doctors. Pain meds, when they work, are great. When they don't, you say, I'll live through it. When this all started, this whole cycle of pain started with some arthritis and bursitis and torn rotator cuff in my shoulders. That was right after COVID. I never got COVID. I got everything else, physically anyway. They put me on some heavy-duty painkillers. And then as other things started happening, they would add more painkillers. When they work, they're great. However, then it started happening with my back. I had a heart thing going on. I had some chest pains. So they did 3 stents in my cardiac arteries, did some physical therapy and some pain meds and some blood thinners. They're throwing all kinds of pain meds at me, all kinds of medication. Then my back had spondylitis, was it? Spondylosis. Anyway, in my back, which affected my hip, which affected my leg, that's when the pain is the worst. That's when you remember seeing me hobble around with a cane. Dealing with it, besides just taking meds twice a day, I got a lot of help from a book and a class I was going to that Kat, our pastor's wife, called Chronic Pain Management. And I started learning some things about how to deal with the stuff that was happening to me. There are a lot of tools about breathing, about mindset, about presence of mind, being conscious of where you are, refocusing. One of the best tools I got, besides keep breathing, that's the main thing, was at night. If you've got all these things on your brain to keep you from sleeping, worrying, you need sleep for your health. And if that's interfering with your sleep, you've got these worries going on, well, you can, as you're falling asleep, you can say, I'm going to put these worries off to tomorrow. And I thought, I can do that because I'm a good worrier. I've been worrying most of my life. And I'm a procrastinator, so I can put these things off to tomorrow. So those two things were just really great. I thought, and then as I'm getting older, I forget things. So now I forget what I was going to be worrying about when I was falling asleep last night. It's like, oh, okay, they went away.
What's a procrastinator?
3 gifts.
This is the benefits of getting older, I guess.
That's right. Yeah. And I'm grateful to being able to talk with Kat and other people in my class about how they're dealing with pain. Because you can't rely on just pain meds. I'm hoping that they can wean me off the biggest of the pain meds once they decide whether I need surgery on my back or not. Because right now I'm feeling good. They give me a shot in my back to allow the nerve impulses to get through the narrowed part of my vertebrae back down to my legs so I can get strength and pain relief. See what's next. I think that's a pretty full, everybody accounted for, shoulder, heart, legs.
You're running out of organs and body parts.
And arthritis in my hands. I got to start each day doing this. I was in the body shop, the guitar shop the other day, talking with a young lady who works there, and I said, I hope I can keep playing the rest of my life, keep my fingers going, because the arthritis is really hard first thing in the morning to get things moving. I said, what can you play without fingers? And she thought, bongos? And I thought, no, that'd be hurting. And I thought, voice. Maybe I can still sing. If my voice gets too hoarse, I'll just sing down like here, do country songs, and I'll be all right. Right? But I love, music has been a theme for my whole life. I was born on Saturday night, and I think I went to church the next day.
Right. And you're that sort of threading of faith and music. Mm-hmm. I know you, but I also feel like that these things are strongly tied together in your person. And the arthritis thing, I mean, you were talking to me a few weeks ago about listening to an older recording and at a time when you can play what you can't play today as easily. Yeah. And kind of wishing you had slow down or relax or take more time for this thing. Like listening to this recording, kind of talking to your younger self. Yeah. But going forward, you were just playing this weekend or Friday. Mm-hmm. Those things, I can only assume that gives you a little bit of life to get out there and sing and play guitar. Yeah. Are you still doing guitar lessons?
I have one student. With COVID, everybody kind of fell away except for one student, Zach, because I could go over to his house and play. And so I've got the one student, and he's doing great, and I love making music with him. That's I've been in several bands, so he and I are in a band, the two of us. We're called the Steve Brown and Zach Miller Band.
Oh, man, I'm going to get sued.
But yeah, I love teaching music, and the other part of my life, big part of my life, is loving my wife, being a caregiver. As her health declines, I do more and more. And I wouldn't change it for the world. It's the hardest job I got and the best. One of the scriptures that empowers me we've been married 25 years, and that's a joy for both of us. We still laugh at each other, with each other, both. We've grown so together, and we're the same mind in many ways. We find so many things to laugh about. The other night, we were watching a movie. We watch a lot of TV a lot because she can't do as much as she used to. So we watch TV together. And one of the lines was, I'm looking for Big John. And Marcia and I both said together, Big Bad John. In unison, same time, and we just cracked up because we come from the same era. Now, you two young people may not have any idea where that comes from, but we do. We have all this stuff.
Are you going to share it with us, or?
I don't have my guitar.
I did get your I'm coming, Elizabeth. I did get that phrase from earlier. Yeah. So I'm not completely,
So that's where my life is now. I get to love on my wife. The scripture that holds it all together for her is, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So I read that as Christ loves the church because he does still love the church. And he gave himself up for her. How can I have a better model than that? And there's no greater calling than to give up what you got, what you are, and to love that person. I mentioned to you earlier, my dad last 3 or 4 years of his life, he was being taken away early by Alzheimer's. And more and more you could not communicate with him because he didn't recognize me. He couldn't put words together. And I realized I still love him. I still love him as much as ever, maybe more, even though he cannot return that love to me. He cannot share the person he was anymore. But I still love him. I think that's what I've learned from the Army about giving, serving. As citizens of this country, civilians and veterans alike, we owe a lot to the people who stand between us and the bad guys, whoever the bad guys happen to be. I didn't go into the Army with that in mind. I went into the Army thinking, well, if I survive this, I'll be able to learn a trade. I'll get the GI Bill. I can have these things when I get out of here that I didn't realize it was going to grow me up to. But I did. I learned a trade. Well, they trained me to be a wheel and track mechanic, to work on tanks and trucks with the big engines and big transmissions and things, do all this stuff together. And I did that pretty good. When I got to my unit in Germany, my CO asked me, my commanding officer said, "Can you type?" They needed a supply clerk, so I became a supply clerk. So I learned how to fix a truck and how to drive a truck and how to keep up with all the paperwork. Got the GI Bill that got me through college, got me into my career, which got me through to where I finally could retire. And so that's what I got a lot of things out of the service. I didn't realize how important I was. I was supplying a company, supplying people who were fixing and keeping rolling all the tanks and trucks and rocket launchers in Germany to be a deterrent to the East Germans and the Russians behind them coming through the Fulda Gap, which is the big strategic area between East and West Germany. I had a little part. It was a key part of a big thing going on. So all the folks that are in uniform, which has included my older daughter, my son, they served in the Navy. My dad was Army, uncle was Army. So I've had relatives in all 4 or 5 of the services: Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Space Force, even that. Everybody's involved in something. But it's a very mixture of humility and pride that I was part of that, but now I can identify with the folks who are standing out there.
And I was picking up maybe an underlying part here, which is the recognition that like what you're doing, however, maybe seems so small or, somewhat appears to be insignificant in the larger scope of things, keeps things, it plays a part. It is right. Not insignificant. Mm-hmm. And, you and I are 2 board members for Gather who are more on the outside of the machinations, looking in. And I know that we've talked a lot about that, wondering, what do we do here? Yeah. What do we bring to the table? And I think that idea that you have about this sort of quiet serving, recognizing that, like you said, you're caring for your wife now. You're a caregiver for your wife. That's your job. That's immensely important. It may not always feel like it in the wider scope of things, but in what you're called to do right now, it's and the part you talked about where loving others who may not be able to love us in return the way that we do. Mm-hmm. That's a recurring theme in so many of the conversations that we have at Gather.
Yeah.
Not just at Gather, but as a family. My grandpa also had Alzheimer's, and I watched him slowly deteriorate, and that was very difficult to experience. But you look at I got 4 boys. You look at a newborn kid, they can't love you the way you love them. Right. And even as teenagers, right. They don't get it, how much you actually care, you know? And so, you know, let's shift gears a little bit. And you've got this amazing story of your time in the military, your family, growing up, your family of your own, that you've, your kids and stuff. How do you see, and this isn't going to be a slight, but I'm going to say it like it is because it's just funny. At your age.
Yes, honey.
Where do you see your faith and action come together in what your presence at Gather, your presence just in the community, in your music stuff? You know, what do you see as kind of your mission now, right? Mm-hmm. You're not in the Army anymore. Mm-hmm. You're retired. What does that look like now?
A few months ago, maybe even a year ago now, I came across a scripture, and I remember the key parts of it, but I want to read the whole thing to you. That kind of defined things for me. It's in 1 Peter 3. And I have this on a sticky note on my mirror because it came up one time during one of Cole's sermons. Your beauty, I look at my own beauty, right? And I see this.
There's certain definitions of beauty. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Your beauty should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. I think gentle and quiet spirit, GQ, that's my personal mission motto now, gentle and quiet. And I love listening to gentle, quiet music. Of course, I still love Led Zeppelin and Eric Clapton. Crank them up.
You're old. You're not dead. For
Right. Pete's sakes, yeah. So, but that's what I am when I'm walking downtown trying to get my gait back after all the crippling things that have been happening to me, being able to just carry my cane instead of using it. A gentle and quiet spirit means to me exchanging greetings to people. Small town is great for that, isn't it? I love it. I live in Chehalis, and so I walk downtown Chehalis, downtown Centralia. When the weather's bad, I go to Walmart or Home Depot, or maybe you can get some royalties for this.
I don't think so. It has to be worth something to get royalties.
So being pleasant to people, greeting them, if there are, and sometimes you can see their eyes light up, say, well, thank you, good morning to you too. That's such a simple thing to do, being pleasant to people. I don't get to have the interaction with the folks in this community that Gather reaches out to. But when I do meet them, the people who are unhoused or addicted or in recovery, whatever stage of life they're in, I don't expect anything back. But giving them a smile, a pleasant greeting, say, hey, it's a good day. I love you, man. When the weather's hot, I bring a bottle of water. When the weather's cold, I often carry an extra pair of gloves to give to people. Little things like that can make a big difference. And it's not the big, massive thing of changing the world or singing a song that everybody hears and they say, oh, wow, God, you're right. That was my intention back when I was writing songs a lot. I'm going to change the world with one song, right? None of them have done that yet.
Well, give it time.
little things like that make a difference. And as elders who are kind of on the outside of the daily workings of it, I think you and I have the gift of being able to stop. I did.
Yeah, right.
Of being able to be a cheerleader. We get to be cheerleaders, and not directors, but intercessors. We see the folks who are working so hard, giving of themselves and having heartbreak when somebody they know dies of overdose or something like that. Comforting, encouraging. The Holy Spirit does all that, but it can do it through us.
I'm going to share a story.
Yeah.
Maybe you can fill in a little bit of the blanks here. I didn't actually get Cole's permission to share this, so I'm just going to go with it anyways. But a couple months ago, he was going through some stressful time. He can't even remember what it was, but you had painted him something. And you brought it to church. And this is, I think, this is an example of exactly what you're talking about. Not to mention, truthfully, Steve, like when I think of gentleness, I do think of you. You do embody this sort of gentle spirit, gentle demeanor. When I grow up, I want to be more like you. But I think
that gray whiskers.
I got a few. But he said, he was going through something, and like I said, he couldn't quite remember what it was at the time or whatever. But you just showed up one day and you had this painting for him. Mm-hmm. Tell us about the painting, and we'll wrap it up on that.
Okay, it's just a little thing on a small board. It wasn't even a big canvas thing, and it was a Frito.
No, like it's just for people listening. It's literally a Frito.
Yeah,
just a Frito chip, one chip.
Yeah, one chip.
It's kind of set up right a little bit.
Yeah, it's. I did some purple and green behind it, but it's got this orange tilde.
Like, yeah.
It's a Frito.
The wave.
Yeah, and I gave it the texture of the rough texture of a Frito, and gave it some character. But I gave it to him and I said, "This is a Frito." And what I said, whatever you can think of, however much I would work on this thing, it's never going to be more than a Frito. But I made it the best I can. And I said, I want you to have this, what it means to you may not mean the same thing to me, but I want it to bring some whimsy into your life. You have 2 boys, so you probably have plenty of whimsy already. You have a wife who's really bright and clever. But I said, this is what I want you to, whenever things get too much, just remember, look at the Frito. And it's just a Frito.
It did. Really, like he was talking about it last night. I was just talking with him. Yeah. He was like, he painted me a Frito. And I remember when I saw the painting at the time, I walked up, I go, is that a Frito? Because you just don't expect it at all. It's the last thing that you're looking for in this painting. And yet it's unequivocally a Frito. And I think it worked. He not only does he remember that, but he keeps that as a memory of sometimes in life all we have to work with is a Frito, and that's what we got. Yeah. So, well, Steve, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your story. I know that there's just so much more we could have gone into. There's so much more that we could have, discussed, and it's a shame to always have to like kind of keep it to a point or whatever. But we just appreciate you so much, and I love you, and I'm glad that you're finding this space to exercise this sort of small acts of love that you've been doing, as well as being a caregiver for your wife and so on. But I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Thank you for just being involved in the community and being that gentle voice. And I will say, and I'll say it again, you really do embody that gentleness so much. And so, anyways, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here.
Been a pleasure, surprisingly.
And with that, we'll end. Thanks, Steve. All right.